Ambassador Victoria Chun walked through the massive corridors of the Galactic Council Station. Her shoes clicked against the crystal floor, each step echoing in the vast space above her head. She had walked this path hundreds of times over the past decade, but today felt different. Today would change everything. The council chamber loomed ahead, its doors carved from a single piece of stone, taken from the first world to join the galactic community 3,000 years ago. Guards from a dozen different species stood at attention as she approached. They did not stop her. They never stopped ambassadors. Inside, the 17 seats arranged in a perfect circle waited. Each seat held a representative of the most powerful civilizations in known space. The Crevathi with their blue skin and 6 arms, the insectoid Serati whose compound eyes reflected light like tiny mirrors, the gaseous Varani who existed inside containment suits. All of them looked down at the humans standing in the center of the room. Victoria had prepared for this moment for 5 years. Every word had been chosen. Every gesture practiced. She carried no documents, no data tablets. Everything she needed was in her mind. Ambassador Chun, High Counselor Vexler began, his voice translated into English by the Universal Systems. We have called you here to discuss Earth's future in this council. Victoria said nothing. She simply waited. The Crevathi counselor shifted in his seat. Humanity has been part of this community for 50 years now. In that time, you have proven yourselves capable. Your soldiers fight bravely in our wars. Your merchants trade honestly. Your scientists contribute to our collective knowledge. However, another voice joined in. This one belonged to Counselor Sisvera, a Serati female whose mandibles clicked as she spoke. Your species has also shown concerning tendencies. You expand too quickly. You ask too many questions about our technology. You resist guidance from your betters. Victoria felt anger burn in her chest, but her face remained calm. This was expected. Every word they spoke had been predicted by Earth's analysts. Vexler raised one of his 6 hands. We have decided that humanity must accept new terms to remain in this council. First, you will share your jump gate technology with us completely. No more secrets. Second, you will accept permanent status as a provisional member without voting rights on major decisions. Third, you will reduce your military fleet by 40%. These terms are not negotiable. The chamber fell silent. 17 pairs of eyes watched Victoria, waiting for her response. They expected protests. They expected pleading. They expected humanity to bend, as humanity always had before. Victoria smiled. It was not a kind smile. 50 years ago, she began, her voice clear and strong, humanity came to this council as children. We were amazed by your technology, your knowledge, your ancient civilizations. We thought joining you meant joining something greater than ourselves. She turned slowly, making eye contact with each counselor. We were wrong. You never saw us as equals. You saw us as tools. Convenient soldiers for your wars. Cheap labor for your industries. A source of resources you could control? Ambassador Chun, Vexler interrupted, you forget yourself. No, counselor. For the first time in 50 years, humanity is remembering itself. Victoria reached into her jacket and pulled out a small data crystal. She held it up for everyone to see. 5 years ago, our intelligence services discovered something interesting. Secret council files that detailed your plan for humanity. Do you want to know what they said? She did not wait for an answer. They said humanity should be kept dependent on council technology. They said we should be given just enough advancement to be useful, but never enough to be independent. They said that if humanity ever became too powerful, you would use economic sanctions and military force to contain us. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some counselors looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. These are lies, Severa hissed. Are they? Victoria tossed the crystal onto the chamber floor. It shattered and holographic documents appeared in the air, floating for everyone to read. Pages and pages of council communications, strategies, and plans. All of them focused on controlling humanity. The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Some demanded to know how humanity had accessed classified files. Others tried to defend the documents as necessary precautions. Victoria waited for the noise to die down. When it did not, she raised her voice. Enough! The word echoed through the chamber, amplified by the excellent acoustics. Silence fell immediately. Humanity did not come here to argue, Victoria said quietly. We came here to inform you of our decision. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws from all Council treaties, agreements, and obligations. We will close our embassies. We will recall our fleets. We will end all trade relationships conducted under Council frameworks. Vexler stood from his seat, towering over the human below. You cannot do this. Without the Council's protection, humanity will be vulnerable. Without our trade networks, your economy will collapse. Without our jump gates, you will be trapped in your own system. Victoria's smile returned. You still do not understand. We have not needed your protection for years. Our economy has been preparing for independence. And as for your jump gates, she paused for effect. We have not needed those for a very long time. The revelation hit the Council like a physical blow. Their faces showed shock, disbelief, and fear. Impossible, someone whispered. 5 years, Victoria continued. 5 years ago, when we discovered your plans, we began preparing. Every human scientist, engineer, and strategist was mobilized. We solved the jump drive equations you told us were impossible. We developed AI systems you said were too dangerous. We built weapons you never imagined we could create. All of it done in secret, behind closed doors, while we smiled and nodded and pretended to be your loyal subordinates. She turned toward the chamber doors. Humanity is leaving this council. We will not be your soldiers anymore. We will not be your servants. And we will never, ever accept being treated as lesser beings again. This is a declaration of war. Vexler roared. Victoria stopped at the doorway and looked back over her shoulder. No, Counselor. This is a declaration of independence. Whether it becomes a war depends entirely on you. She walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted into arguments and accusations. She could hear them screaming at each other, their unity fracturing before her eyes. Outside the station, her diplomatic ship waited. The human crew stood at attention as she boarded. The captain, a young woman named Sarah Park, saluted. Ambassador, we have received confirmation. All human ships are ready for Exodus protocol. Victoria nodded. Send the signal. Across the galaxy in hundreds of systems and thousands of locations, humans received the encrypted message. In embassies, they began destroying classified materials. On military bases, they loaded weapons and supplies onto ships. In colonies, families gathered their belongings and prepared to leave. As Victoria's ship pulled away from the council station, she watched it grow smaller through the viewport. That massive structure, built over millennia, had seemed so permanent. Now it looked fragile. Her communication officer approached. Ma'am, we are receiving thousands of messages from council species. They are demanding we stop. They are threatening consequences. Ignore them all, Victoria said. From this moment forward, humanity speaks only when we choose to, and only on our own terms. The ship's jump drive activated, tearing a hole in space itself. In seconds, they would be light years away. Beginning the journey home to Earth. Victoria allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They had done it? After 50 years of bowing and scraping, humanity had finally stood up. Now came the hard part. Now they had to survive. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, watching the tactical display with cold calculation. Around his ship, 300 human vessels held formation in the Corven system. Below them, on the planet's surface, a war raged. The Council's armies fought against the Devourers, a hostile alien swarm that had been pushing into Council territory for 5 years. For 5 years, human soldiers had bled and died on the front lines of this war. Over 40,000 human lives lost, fighting for a council that saw them as expendable. Admiral, his communications officer called out, General Lexmore is demanding to speak with you again. He says if we withdraw now, the entire defensive line will collapse. Marcus had served in the military for 32 years. He had fought in 6 major campaigns. He knew what a collapsing defensive line meant. Thousands would die, maybe millions, but his orders were clear. Tell General Dexmore that Earth wishes him good luck. We are leaving. Marcus turned to his tactical officer. Initiate withdrawal. All ships jump to Rally Point Alpha. The human fleet began to move, pulling back from their positions. On the planet below, the alien general's communications became frantic. Threats mixed with pleas. Neither changed anything. Space rippled and twisted as the human ships activated their jump drives. One by one, they vanished, leaving enormous holes in the Council's battle formation. Marcus felt no guilt. Earth had given enough. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human merchant ships vanished from trade routes, taking with them the cargo that kept Council economies running. Human engineers walked away from construction projects, some half-finished. Human doctors left alien hospitals, their advanced medical techniques going with them. In the Varani commercial zone, Captain Lisa Zhao commanded a small convoy of 12 cargo ships. They had been transporting rare earth minerals from human mining colonies to Varani industrial worlds for 10 years. The Varani had grown dependent on those minerals. Their entire manufacturing sector relied on steady shipments. Captain, her first officer said nervously, we are being hailed by Varani Customs. They are ordering us to dock and unload our cargo as scheduled. Lisa checked her chronometer. The Exodus signal had been sent 1 hour ago. By now, every human in the galaxy knew the truth. Reply politely, Lisa said. Tell them our cargo is no longer available. We are returning to Earth. The Varani response came quickly and angrily. They threatened to seize the ships. They invoked trade agreements and legal contracts. They promised consequences. Lisa ignored them all and ordered her convoy to jump. On the colony world of New Hebron, Governor Patricia Mboto watched the morning sun rise over fields of golden wheat. 15,000 humans called this world home. They had lived here for 20 years, building farms and communities. Some had children who were born here and had never seen Earth, her communicator buzzed. The Exodus message appeared on the screen. Patricia called an emergency assembly. Within an hour, every colonist stood in the main square. She explained the situation simply and clearly. Earth was leaving the Council. All humans were being recalled home. Ships would arrive in 3 days to evacuate everyone. But this is our home, someone shouted from the crowd. Earth is our home, Patricia replied. This was always temporary. The Council never saw us as permanent residents. They saw us as tenants they could evict whenever they wished. The debate lasted for hours. Some colonists wanted to stay. They had built lives here. They had alien friends. They believed in the dream of galactic cooperation. Patricia understood their feelings, but she also understood reality. You can stay if you want. Earth will not force anyone to leave. But understand this, we are taking everything with us. Our technology, our weapons, our defenses. If you stay as individuals, not as representatives of humanity. In the end, most chose to leave. Only 300 decided to remain, mostly scientists and academics who had married aliens or felt the colony was worth saving. The evacuation ships arrived on schedule. They were enormous vessels, capable of carrying thousands of people and tons of equipment. The humans worked day and night loading everything valuable. Farming equipment, power generators, computers, weapons. Even the bolts holding structures together were removed and packed. The alien neighbors watched in confusion and growing alarm. The Sarati merchants who traded with the colony suddenly realized how much they depended on human goods. The Krevathi security forces saw their early warning systems being dismantled and understood how vulnerable they would be without human intelligence sharing. Similar scenes happened on 17 human colony worlds. Some evacuations went smoothly. Others faced resistance. On Kepler Station, a joint human-Varani research facility, things turned violent. The Varani director tried to prevent human scientists from leaving claiming they had contracts and obligations. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, the human chief scientist, faced him in the station's main laboratory. "You cannot leave," the Varani hissed through his translator. "Your work here is too important. We will not allow it." Sarah looked at the alien she had worked beside for 8 years. They had been friends once, or so she thought. "You will not allow it?" Sarah asked quietly. "That is exactly the problem. You think you can allow or forbid what humans do? You never saw us as partners. You saw us as employees you could order around. This is different. We need you. Then you should have treated us as equals." Sarah turned to her team of 30 human scientists. "Pack everything. Our research, our equipment, our notes, all of it comes with us." The Varani director made his mistake then. He activated the station's security systems, trying to lock down the human quarters. Doors sealed shut. Atmosphere control shifted. It was meant to be a threat, a show of force. Instead, it was a declaration. Sarah smiled grimly and pulled out a small device from her pocket. She pressed a button. Throughout the station, human-designed systems began responding to override codes that the Varani did not know existed. "Did you really think," Sarah asked, "that we would build your technology without leaving ourselves a back door?" Doors unsealed. Life support returned to normal. And the station's communication systems began broadcasting, everything happening to every human ship within range. 12 hours later, 3 Earth Defense Force warships arrived at Kepler Station. The Varani director wisely decided not to resist further. Sarah and her team left peacefully, taking 10 years of research with them. The incident became famous across human networks. It also sent a message to the Council: do not try to hold humans hostage. The withdrawal continued for 6 weeks. It was the largest coordinated movement of people and resources in galactic history. Over 2 million humans returned to Earth or human-controlled systems. Thousands of ships made the journey. Not a single human life was lost in the withdrawal. Though several Council species tried to interfere, Admiral Webb's final action was to lead a convoy past the Varani blockade at New Hebron. 16 Varani warships positioned themselves between the human evacuation fleet and the jump point. Weapons armed. The standoff lasted 3 tense hours. The Varani commander demanded that humans leave behind their heavy equipment and technology. Webb refused. "You have 2 choices," Webb transmitted to the alien ships. "You can let us pass peacefully, or you can attack us and learn why humans have a reputation as the best fighters in the galaxy." Behind Webb's diplomatic ship, 200 human warships powered up their weapons. They were outnumbered, but every Varani captain could see their sensor readings. Human weapons technology had advanced far beyond what the Council knew about. The Varani blockade parted. The humans flew through without incident. As the last human ships jumped out of Council space, Marcus Webb sat in his command chair and allowed himself a moment of relief. They had done it. Every human who wanted to come home was safe, but he also knew this was just the beginning. The Council would not accept humanity's departure easily. They would try sanctions, pressure, maybe even military action. Marcus opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Webb reporting. Operation Exodus complete. All personnel and assets successfully withdrawn from Council space. The response came from Admiral Kenji Tanaka, the head of Earth's Defense Forces. "Good work, Marcus. Now comes the hard part. Get your fleet to Sol System. We have work to do." Marcus smiled. Yes, they had work to do. Earth needed to prepare for what came next, because humanity had just announced to the galaxy that they would not be pushed around anymore. And the galaxy was going to have to learn to accept that fact. High Counselor Thexara watched the holographic display with growing horror. Red markers indicated conflict zones across Council space. There were hundreds of them, scattered like a disease across the galactic map. 6 months ago, before humanity's departure, the map had shown only a dozen trouble spots. "The Krevathi and Sarati are fighting again," her aide reported. "Border skirmishes in the Tiran sector. 3 colonies have been destroyed." Vexara felt her mandibles click in frustration. The Krevathi and Sarati had been enemies for 1,000 years before the Council formed. Only careful diplomacy and the threat of human military intervention had kept them peaceful. Now, with humans gone, old hatreds returned. "What about the frontier?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "The Devourers have pushed through our defensive lines. They have taken 7 systems in the past month. Civilian casualties are estimated at 12 million and rising." 12 million. The number seemed impossible. Before the humans left, the frontier had been stable. The Devourers attacked, yes, but human tactical brilliance and willingness to fight had kept them contained. Now the Council's own forces fought alone, and they were losing badly. The Council chamber, once a place of dignified debate, had become a circus of accusations and blame. Vexara entered for the daily session and immediately heard shouting. "This is humanity's fault!" Councillor Vexler roared, his 6 arms waving dramatically. "They abandoned us in our time of need. They are cowards and traitors." "We pushed them away," Councillor Sisvera argued back. "We treated them like servants instead of partners. Now we suffer the consequences." "They were servants. Inferior beings who should have been grateful for our guidance." The argument continued, getting louder and more hostile. Vexara noticed that several councillors were not even present. The Varani representative had not appeared for 3 weeks. 2 other species had sent junior diplomats instead of their actual councillors. The council was fracturing. "Enough!" Vexara called out, using her authority as High Councillor. The chamber quieted slightly. "Fighting among ourselves solves nothing. We need solutions, not blame." "The solution is obvious," Vexler said. "We must force humanity to return. Economic sanctions. Travel restrictions? If necessary, military blockade of their system." Vexara wanted to laugh at the stupidity, but she kept her composure. "Military blockade? With what ships? Half our fleet is on the frontier being destroyed by the Devourers. The other half is protecting trade routes that pirates now attack daily. We have no ships available for offensive action. Then we build more ships. With what resources? In case you have not noticed, Counselor, our economy is collapsing." Vexara activated a new holographic display. Economic charts appeared in the air, all of them showing downward trends. Human merchants carried 40% of all cargo in council space. Human logistics systems managed our supply chains. Human banking systems processed our transactions. All of that is gone. The numbers were devastating. Unemployment on Krevathi worlds had tripled. Varani industrial production had dropped by 60%. Food shipments to dozens of worlds were delayed or missing entirely. The Council's credit rating used for interstellar loans had been downgraded 4 times. "We can adapt," someone said weakly. "Can we?" Vexara gestured to another chart. "This shows piracy incidents over the past 6 months. Before humanity left, we had perhaps 50 reported attacks per month. Now we have 500. Do you know why?" Silence greeted her question. "Because human patrol fleets kept the trade routes safe. They did it efficiently and honestly, without demanding bribes or playing political games. Now our own species must handle security, and we are doing it poorly. Pirates know this. They are taking advantage." The truth hurt, but it needed to be said. For 50 years, the Council had relied on humanity for countless services and functions. They had thought humans were lucky to serve. Now they understood that the Council had been lucky to have them. On the industrial world of Varani Prime, factories stood silent and empty. Director Xvan walked through the massive production facility, his containment suit sensors detecting no activity. Machines that should have been running sat cold and unused. The problem was simple: no raw materials. The Varani factories processed rare earth minerals into advanced components used throughout Council space. Those minerals came from human mining colonies. When the humans left, they took their mining equipment and expertise with them. The Varani tried to operate the mines themselves, but failed completely. Human mining techniques were too advanced, too efficient. Without them, production dropped to nearly zero. Fen had 5,000 workers with no work to do. His factory, once the pride of Varani industry, was now just an expensive building full of useless equipment. He was not alone. Across Varani space, hundreds of facilities faced the same problem. The Varani government, desperate for solutions, had tried to force human colonies that stayed behind to provide resources. Those colonists, no longer backed by Earth's military, could not refuse. But they numbered only a few thousand people across all of Council space. They could not possibly replace what had been lost. On the medical station orbiting Sarati 3, Dr. Krellick faced a different crisis. She stood in the intensive care unit, looking at patients she could not help. They suffered from genetic disorders that required advanced treatment. Treatment that human doctors had developed and human equipment could provide. How long until they die? She asked her assistant. Without the treatment? 6 months, maybe less. Krellick had worked alongside human doctors for 15 years. She had learned much from them, but not enough. Human medical knowledge was decades ahead of Council science in certain areas. The humans had shared some of their knowledge, but not all of it. Now she understood why. They had been preparing for this day. The communications station on her wrist buzzed. Another hospital was calling, asking for help with a disease outbreak. A disease that humans could have easily cured. Tell them we are doing our best, Krellick said. Knowing her best was not good enough. In the Council's military command center, General Lexmore watched his forces die. The tactical display showed the Battle of Carvex 7 in real time. 20 Council warships fought against a devourer swarm. The aliens outnumbered them 3-1, but numbers should not have mattered. Council ships had superior technology and firepower, but they were losing anyway. Lexmore had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had fought beside humans for 20 of those years. He understood now what he had not understood before. Humans had not just been good fighters. They had been brilliant tacticians who made everyone around them better. Human ships would have coordinated their attacks perfectly, supporting each other, covering weaknesses, exploiting enemy mistakes. Council ships fought bravely but independently, each captain making their own decisions. The result was chaos. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the Vengeance has been destroyed. The Righteous is heavily damaged and retreating. 18 ships now, then 17, then 15. Lexmore gave the order to withdraw. His fleet jumped away, leaving Carvex 7 to the Devourers. Another system lost. Another million civilians dead or enslaved. He had called for human help during that battle. He had sent a direct communication to Earth Command, explaining the situation, asking for assistance. The response had come 6 hours later. One word, no. Lexmore had been furious then. Now, watching his forces crumble, he understood. Why would humans help? The Council had treated them poorly for 50 years. They had demanded human blood and treasure while giving nothing but contempt in return. Back in the Council chamber, 3 months after humanity's departure, Lexara received a private communication. It was encrypted with codes only she and a few others knew. The message was from Earth, from Victoria Shun herself. "Hi, Counselor," the message began. "I know you argued against the ultimatum that drove us away. I know you tried to warn your colleagues about treating humanity as subordinates. For that reason, I am sending you this message." The message continued, outlining humanity's position. They would not rejoin the Council. They would not accept any agreement that limited their sovereignty. But they were willing to discuss bilateral treaties with individual species, treating each as an equal partner. Some of your colleagues believe they can force us to return through sanctions or military action. Victoria's message concluded. Tell them this is foolish. Humanity has grown stronger since we left, not weaker. We have new technologies, new alliances, new capabilities. If the Council tries to attack us, we will defend ourselves. And the Council will lose. Lexara read the message 3 times. Then she called for an emergency council session. She told them about the message, about Earth's offer. She explained that humanity was willing to negotiate, but only as equals. Some counselors, the more intelligent ones, listened carefully. Others, like Vexler, dismissed it as human arrogance. Let them try to stand alone. Vexler said. They will come crawling back within a year, begging to be readmitted. Vexler looked at him with contempt. You still do not understand. Humanity is not standing alone. They are building something new. And unless we change, unless we admit our mistakes and treat them with respect, we will be left behind. But her words fell on deaf ears. The council was too proud, too set in its ways. Captain James Okafor stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Discovery, watching the view screen with wonder. Before them lay a system that no council survey had ever recorded. 3 habitable planets orbited a yellow star. Sensor readings showed signs of civilization on 2 of them. Captain, his science officer called out, I am picking up radio transmissions. Basic technology, similar to Earth's 20th century? James smiled. This was the 4th inhabited system they had found in 2 months. All of them existed beyond the Council's mapped territories. In regions the Council had declared too distant or too worthless to explore, but humans had always been good explorers. It was in their nature to see what was over the next hill, around the next corner, beyond the next star. Prepare a first contact package, James ordered. Standard protocols. Let them know we come in peace and want to talk. The Council had strict rules about contacting primitive civilizations. Rules designed to control who could join the galactic community and when. Humans had followed those rules for 50 years. Now they followed their own rules, which were much simpler: be honest, be respectful, and offer help without demanding subordination. The response from the planet came 6 hours later. The aliens, who called themselves the Tarveni, were excited and cautious. They had known about the Council for decades, picking up stray transmissions. They had tried to contact the Council but were ignored. The Council's policy was to wait until a species developed jump drive technology before making contact. This usually took centuries. Humans did not have centuries to wait. They needed friends and allies, and they found them among species the Council had overlooked. On Earth, in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Kenji Tanaka watched construction progress on the Aurora network. Massive holographic displays showed star systems across 100 light-years of space. In each system, human construction ships built jump gates. These were not the Council's gates. They were something new, based on principles humans had discovered on their own. They were faster, more efficient, and completely independent of Council infrastructure. Admiral, his chief engineer reported, Gate 17 is online. We now have 43 gates active. The network is 70% complete. Kenji nodded with satisfaction. When finished, the Aurora network would connect 50 systems. Human ships would be able to jump freely between them, moving faster than any Council fleet. They would have strategic mobility that no one else could match. What about the defense platforms? Kenji asked. On schedule. Each gate will have 6 platforms by completion. Automated weapon systems, AI-controlled, capable of destroying any ship that enters without proper authorization codes. The platforms were another human innovation. The Council had defense satellites, of course, but they were simple and easy to overwhelm. Human platforms used adaptive AI that learned from every encounter. They could coordinate attacks, predict enemy movements, and adjust tactics in real time. Any Council fleet that tried to invade human space would face a nightmare of automated defenses that got smarter with every battle, but Kenji hoped it would never come to that. War with the Council would be costly, even if humanity won. Better to make war unthinkable through strength and deterrence. In the commercial district of New Singapore, a massive orbital habitat near Earth, Merchant Captain Lisa Zhao met with representatives from the Tarveni civilization. They sat in a conference room overlooking Earth, its blue and white surface visible through the transparent walls. We want to trade with you, the Tarveni diplomat said through a translator. But we have little to offer. Our technology is primitive compared to yours. Lisa shook her head. Technology is not everything. Your system has resources we need. You have unique agricultural products. You have cultural goods that humans would love to experience. Most importantly, you have friendship to offer. The Tarveni looked confused. Friendship has value in trade? More value than anything else, Lisa replied. The council never understood this. They measured everything in terms of power and profit. They never learned that the best trade relationships are built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. Over the next 3 hours, they negotiated a trade agreement. It was fair to both sides, with neither party trying to exploit the other. The Tarveni would provide raw materials and agricultural goods. Humans would provide technology and education. Both would benefit. This pattern repeated across human space. Dozens of minor civilizations, ignored or suppressed by the Council, found eager partners in humanity. These species would never be galactic powers, but they did not need to be. They just needed to be treated fairly. In Earth's orbital shipyards, something new was being born. Chief Engineer Patricia Bodo walked through the massive construction bay, looking up at the vessel taking shape above her. It was enormous, 5 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. The first of the Sentinel-class dreadnoughts. How long until completion? She asked her assistant. 8 months. We are actually ahead of schedule. Patricia allowed herself a moment of pride. The Sentinel represented everything humanity had learned in 50 years of space travel, combined with innovations the Council never dreamed of. It had weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand sustained bombardment, AI systems that made the ship almost alive. More importantly, 10 more Sentinels were under construction in other shipyards. When they were all finished, humanity would have a fleet that could face any Council armada with confidence, but Patricia hoped they would never be used. These ships existed for one purpose: to make sure no one ever tried to threaten humanity again on Mars. In the academic halls of New Oxford University, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo gave a lecture to 1,000 students. The topic was human innovation and the future of science. Before we left the Council, she explained, we had to be careful about what we discovered. Any major breakthrough had to be shared with them. This meant we could not keep strategic advantages. We could not build on our strengths without everyone else copying us immediately. She gestured to a holographic display showing scientific progress over the past year. Look at what we have accomplished since gaining independence. Quantum computing advances that will revolutionize information processing. Medical treatments that extend human lifespan by decades. Material science breakthroughs that make our ships lighter and stronger. All of this happened because we were free to pursue our own path. A student raised their hand. Professor, do you think we should share these discoveries with the Council species? Sarah considered the question carefully. Eventually, yes. Knowledge should be shared, but not yet and not freely. The Council must learn that knowledge is valuable. They must learn to respect those who create it. When they understand that, when they approach us as equals seeking mutual benefit, then we can talk about sharing. The lecture continued, but Sarah's mind wandered slightly. She thought about her years working on Kepler Station, believing she was part of something greater. She had been naive then. Now she understood that greatness came not from being part of an ancient institution, but from building something new and better. 9 months after humanity's departure, something unexpected happened. 3 Council species made a joint announcement. They were leaving the Council to form their own alliance. The Tarveni, whom humans had befriended, the Kelvin Confederacy, a loose group of independent worlds, and surprisingly, the Serati Hive High Counselor Thexara, now leading the Serati breakaway faction, explained their decision in a broadcast to the galaxy. For 3,000 years, the Council has maintained peace through domination. The strong ruled the weak. The old civilizations controlled the young ones. This worked after a fashion, but it was not justice. It was not true cooperation. She paused, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Humanity showed us a different path. They proved that a younger species could stand against the old powers and win. Not through military conquest, but through innovation, determination, and refusal to accept subordination. We have learned from their example. The Council's response was predictable. They condemned the secession. They threatened economic sanctions and military action. But everyone knew these were empty threats. The Council lacked the strength to enforce its will. Meanwhile, the new alliance, calling itself the Free Systems Coalition, established diplomatic relations with Earth. They were not subordinate to humanity, nor was humanity subordinate to them. They were equals, working together for a mutual benefit. Captain Okafor, still exploring distant space, received news of these developments with satisfaction. He sent a message back to Earth Command. It is spreading. The idea that no one should bow to anyone else. That cooperation should be based on respect, not fear. We started something bigger than we realized. On Earth, Victoria Chun, now Secretary General, read Okafor's message and smiled. She stood on the balcony of her office in Geneva, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council still existed, diminished and struggling. Somewhere out there, the Free Systems Coalition was forming, building something new. And here on Earth, humanity continued to grow stronger, more advanced, more united. They had taken an enormous risk by leaving the Council. Many had predicted disaster. Instead, they had found freedom, prosperity, and the respect of others. The emergency broadcast cut through every communication channel in Council space simultaneously. High Counselor Vexler S. voice, usually so confident and commanding, shook with barely controlled terror. This is an urgent distress call to all civilized species. The Devourers have broken through our final defensive line. They are approaching Axiom Prime. We estimate 72 hours until arrival. All available military forces are requested to assist in the defense of the Council homeworld. Admiral Marcus Webb listened to the broadcast from his office on Earth. Around him, his staff stood silently, waiting for his orders. They all knew what this meant. Axiom Prime was not just the Council's political center. It was home to 15 billion beings from a dozen different species. If it fell, the slaughter would be unimaginable. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "Earth Command is asking for your recommendation." Marcus had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. 6 months of war games, strategy sessions, and difficult ethical debates. The question had always been simple. If the Council faced extinction, would humanity help? "Tell Earth Command I am going to Axiom Prime," Marcus said. "And I am taking a fleet with me." Across human space, warships received their orders. The Earth Defense Fleet, now 3 times larger than when humanity left the Council, began mobilizing. 600 ships, including 3 of the new Sentinel-class dreadnoughts, prepared for combat. Secretary General Victoria Chun addressed Earth in a live broadcast. Her face appeared on screens across the planet and every human habitat in the solar system. "1 year ago," she began, "humanity left the Galactic Council because they refused to treat us as equals. They saw us as servants and subordinates. When we demanded respect, they responded with threats and ultimatums." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Now the Council faces destruction. Some of you might feel satisfaction at this. Some might say they deserve their fate. But that is not who we are." Victoria's expression hardened with determination. "We did not leave the Council because we wanted them to die. We left because we refused to live as lesser beings. Now they face an enemy that threatens not just their pride or their power, but their very existence. And despite everything, we will help them." The broadcast continued, explaining the decision. "We are not doing this to rejoin the Council. We are not doing this for gratitude or payment. We are doing this because 15 billion innocent people should not die because their leaders made mistakes. We are doing this because it is right." Not everyone agreed with the decision. Protests erupted in several cities. People who had lost family members in Council wars demanded to know why humanity should risk more lives. The debate raged across social media and news networks, but the fleet departed anyway. Sometimes leadership meant making unpopular choices. Admiral Webb's task force arrived at Axiom Prime 60 hours after the distress call. The sight that greeted them was sobering. The Council had assembled every available warship, nearly 1,000 vessels from a dozen species. They formed a defensive perimeter around the planet, weapons charged and ready. Beyond them, the Devourer swarm approached like a dark cloud. Sensors showed over 5,000 enemy ships, each one a biological monstrosity grown for war. They moved with terrifying coordination, flowing through space like a single organism. Webb opened a channel to the Council's command ship. General Vexmore's face appeared on the screen, looking exhausted and desperate. "Admiral Webb," the alien general said. "You came?" "We came," Marcus confirmed. "But we are not under your command. Human forces will fight independently. We will coordinate with you, but we make our own tactical decisions." Vexmore looked like he wanted to argue, but he simply nodded. "Understood. Any help is welcome." The human fleet took position, forming a spearhead formation that would punch through the enemy swarm. The Sentinel-class dreadnoughts positioned themselves at the center, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Smaller destroyers and cruisers spread out in a protective screen on the bridge of the EDS Defiant. Marcus watched the tactical display as the Devourers entered weapons range. He had fought these creatures before. He knew their tactics, their weaknesses, and their terrifying strengths. "All ships," he transmitted across the human fleet. "Weapons free. Execute Alpha Pattern 7. The human fleet moved with perfect precision. Every ship knew its role. Every captain understood the plan. This was what happened when AI-assisted coordination met highly trained crews. The first salvo caught the Devourers by surprise. Human weapons, more advanced than anything the Council possessed, tore through the enemy formation. Relativistic projectiles traveling at a significant fraction of light speed punched through biological armor. Energy weapons, tuned to frequencies that disrupted Devourer nervous systems, caused entire sections of the swarm to convulse and die, but the Devourers adapted quickly. They always did. The swarm shifted tactics, breaking into smaller groups that tried to surround and overwhelm the human ships. This was where human innovation truly shined. Each human ship deployed thousands of combat drones, small autonomous fighters controlled by advanced AI. These drones learned from every encounter, sharing information across the network. Within minutes, they had analyzed Devourer attack patterns and begun exploiting weaknesses. The Council forces watched in amazement. They had never seen warfare conducted with such precision and adaptability. Human captains made decisions in seconds that would take Council commanders minutes to consider. Human weapon systems tracked dozens of targets simultaneously. Human shields adjusted frequency in real time to counter enemy weapons. A critical moment came when a Devourer suicide squadron broke through the defensive line. Heading straight for Axiom Prime, 50 enemy ships, each packed with biological explosives, accelerated toward the planet. If they reached the surface, millions would die, the EDS Righteous. A destroyer commanded by Captain Sarah Park positioned itself in their path. Her ship was tiny compared to the enemy vessels bearing down on her. "Righteous to Fleet Command," Sarah transmitted calmly. "I have a solution to the Suicide Squadron problem, but you are not going to like it." Before Marcus could respond, Sarah activated her ship's self-destruct sequence and set it on a collision course with the enemy formation. At the same time, she launched every escape pod, giving her crew 60 seconds to evacuate. The Righteous slammed into the center of the enemy squadron at relativistic speed. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a brief star that vaporized the suicide ships and saved millions of lives below. Marcus watched it happen, feeling grief and pride in equal measure. Sarah had been his student at the Academy 20 years ago. Now she had sacrificed her ship to save aliens who had never respected humanity. That was what made humans different. They did not fight for glory or conquest. They fought to protect others even when those others did not deserve it. The battle raged for 18 hours. Slowly, painfully, the human fleet and Council forces pushed the Devourers back. The enemy swarm began to fragment, its coordination breaking down as human AI systems hacked into their communication networks. Finally, the Devourers retreated, fleeing into deep space. They left behind thousands of destroyed ships and a clear message. They would not return to Axiom Prime anytime soon. In the aftermath, the Council chamber filled with representatives from every species. They gathered to discuss what had happened, what it meant, and what came next. Victoria Chun entered the chamber uninvited. No one stopped her. Security guards stepped aside. Counselors, even those who had opposed humanity most strongly, stood in respect. She walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where she had announced humanity's departure 1 year earlier. "The battle is over," Victoria said quietly. "The Devourers are defeated. 15 billion people are safe because humanity chose to help, despite having every reason not to." She turned slowly, looking at each counselor. "Now we need to talk about the future. Not the Council's future, the galaxy's future." Vexler, diminished by recent events but still proud, spoke up. "Are you asking to rejoin the Council?" Victoria laughed, a sound without humor. "No, Counselor. We are not asking for anything. We are telling you how things are going to be." She activated a holographic display. It showed star systems across known space, marked with different colors: blue for human-controlled space, green for the Free Systems Coalition, yellow for independent worlds, red for Council territory. "The galaxy is changing. The old order is dead. You killed it yourselves through arrogance and stupidity. Now something new is being born." Victoria gestured to the display. "Humanity offers bilateral treaties to any Council species that wants them. We will trade as equals. We will defend each other as partners. We will share knowledge and resources based on mutual benefit, not domination. But," she continued, her voice hardening, "we will never again accept any agreement that limits our sovereignty. We will never accept provisional status or second-class membership. We will never allow anyone to tell us we are inferior." The chamber remained silent. Every counselor understood what Victoria was offering, a chance to join the future, but only if they were willing to abandon the past. Xara, who had been waiting for this moment, stood from her seat. "The Serati accept your terms. We wish to negotiate a mutual defense treaty and trade agreement.